Stone Cold Steve Austin has provided some of the most legendary promos, matches, and rivalries within WWE. One would wonder about the thought process behind all of that and what Steve's career was like when the cameras weren't rolling. So over the years, Steve hasn't been shy in revealing some of the craziest stories from his career, and kicking things off is with the promo that made him a household name. While it's no secret that his 316 promo propelled him to the top of the card, for those who still don't know, Steve defeated Jake the Snake Roberts in the final of the King of the Ring tournament back in 1996. While the match was pretty short and forgettable, it was Steve's promo after the match that still gets talked about till this very day.
You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass.
But the insane thing about this story is this promo would have never been legendary if it wasn't for Michael Hayes. To keep things simple, Steve was in hospital getting stitched up and missed the promo Jake Roberts cut on him. Michael Hayes then told Steve Jake cut a religious based promo on him and told Steve to use that in some shape or form after he wins the tournament. And Austin instantly thought about John 3:16 signs that he would come across in the past.
When I come back, my mouth is stitched up, and as soon as I get out of the ambulance, there's Michael Hayes.
We're in the back of the Mecca arena, and he came out. He was going to the ring to go take on Jake. I mean, literally going to the ring. And I said, Jake just cut a promo. He says, what'd he say? And I said, he just uses some Bible quotes and, that he was going to win.
And when he told me that, I immediately thought of the football days back in the day when they're kicking the field goals a point after. They always had John 3:16 signs behind the field goals. So anyway, we go out there and we have the match, myself and Jake, and because my lip was busted up, we had a real short match. After the match, I go over there to do the interview with Michael Hayes, who had smartened me up.
And the rest is history. The promo serves as a reminder that sometimes it's beneficial to allow the wrestlers to be creative themselves, as it resulted in the words Austin 3:16 making WWE millions of bucks too. And for Steve, while getting paid is great, getting paid extra on top of your lucrative contract is even sweeter, as it's well known that wrestlers get paid a percentage of merchandising sales, and it could end up being a lot if it performs well. And WWE capitalized on Steve's rising popularity, and to say that the 316 t-shirt performed well would be a massive understatement. So in an interview, Stone Cold tells how he broke the record and got the biggest royalty check ever according to Vince.
I'll never tell this story. In WWE, you get your royalty checks every quarter. And I remember when I first came up with that shirt, and man, all of a sudden I came out with that shirt, and those shirts are everywhere. And I went and had a conversation with Vince, and I said, hey man, I've seen a lot of t-shirts out there, and I noticed that my royalty check doesn't reflect that. And he goes, well, Steve, what do you think we should do? I said, well, I think we need to kind of change the percentages. And then he goes, what do you think about that? I really prided myself on being able to sell merchandise, because when WCW didn't see me as ever being a star, it was time to come out with the royalty checks for that quarter. And Vince wanted to hand deliver this one to me. He handed it to me. He goes, Steve, I'm just giving this to you because I've never given out a check like this before to anyone. Definitely 7 figures, probably 8 figures now.
Moving on, it's fair to say that wrestlers' theme music nowadays isn't that great compared to the Jim Johnston era of the 90s. And considering that it adds a lot to the overall presentation of a superstar, you would think that WWE would invest more into it. From whether it's Edge's You Think You Know Me to the trumpets of John Cena, opening theme music can become iconic with time, but nothing in my opinion is more iconic than the sound of the glass shattering at the beginning of Stone Cold's theme music. And whilst Jim Johnston has produced many iconic theme songs, you'll be surprised to hear that it was actually Steve who came up with the idea. So while speaking on the Pardon My Take podcast, he revealed the inspiration behind his legendary theme.
But you also got to understand, finally, when I turned from the ringmaster into Stone Cold, the music that I had to begin with was, laid back, boring, lulling. Oh, it's terrible. And so then I started getting a little bit of hands-on when I came up with the Stone Cold thing. And I said, hey, do you have any ideas for some ring music? I said, you're damn right I do. So I took Rage Against the Machine, Bulls on Parade, to Jim Johnston. I said, it ain't this song, but it's in the vein of this song. And so why he thought about the glass breaking, because Stone Cold.
Yeah.
And then he put the sirens in, but it's a da-da-da-da. The whole thing was a masterpiece, and I give all the credit to Jim Johnston, but it was inspired, at least in my head, by Rage Against the Machine, Bulls on Parade.
Yeah. And just for nostalgia's sake, let's remind ourselves of what a kick-ass theme it was. But you can't talk about a kick-ass theme without mentioning the move that usually set it up. So while growing up, a question that got asked a lot was who took the best Stone Cold Stunner. A lot of people claim that Scott Hall did it.
Nice.
Some even put Austin Theory in that conversation as he sold the stunner to perfection at WrestleMania 38.
It was perfect.
Regardless, we can all agree that Vince McMahon was the absolute worst at selling the stunner. Now, when it comes to the man who made the stunner famous, he has a clear answer on who sold his finisher better than others. Speaking to Chris Van Vliet, Austin made it clear that it was his greatest rival ever, The Rock, and he was the best at it.
You've given the Stone Cold Stunner to just about everybody. Now, can we settle this once and for all? Who takes the best stunner?
Well, you had those different athletic presentations. Scott Hall, Shane took a good one, but I always go to The Rock. The Rock would always take that extra effort to careen around the ring and way oversell fashion. But it just meant so much when he did that, because the big matches that we had, whether it was 15, 17, and 19, those moments meant so much. And, here's the thing about that people don't understand about when you give The Rock a stunner. That guy, he was so jacked and just so hard. When he's bouncing around the ring, sometimes he'd flop off the ropes and end up landing back on me. And I was like, Jesus, you're killing me. So giving The Rock a stunner can be painful, just when he flops back on you. But that's the name I'm going to give you.
And while some may think that The Rock oversold it, at the end of the day, Steve liked it, so we shouldn't have a problem with it. That being said, one thing that Triple H has done ever since he took over creative is that he's not relying on these part-timers or legends. And yes, The Rock and John Cena have appeared during the Paul Levesque era, but Vince relied on legends. He never thought about building new stars who could lead the company into the future. So Vince wanted WrestleMania 38 to feel special at the time. Both Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens were without any opponents. Rollins will go on facing a returning Cody Rhodes, and Owens had the honor of main eventing his first ever WrestleMania, and it was against none other than the legend himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin. While the whole main event was just meant to be a massive edition of the KO show, we all knew it was going to lead to a match. However, fans were expecting disaster as Steve had retired many years ago. But when you're in the ring with a professional like Kevin Owens, you could still somewhat expect a decent match. That being said, the whole thing ended up being a memorable moment for everyone in attendance and watching at home, and you could give a large credit to Owens for taking care of Steve Austin. The one thing that should be noted here is that Steve didn't work out before the match. He told Chris Van Vliet that he hadn't prepared for this match at all, and he was basically killing Owens with stiff kicks and punches. Surprisingly, KO was cool with it, and he didn't give him a receipt or retaliate in any manner.
Dallas was set up for a Stone Cold return, and the way we framed that with KO, who I love, was perfect for the time and setting.
We have a whole lot more to...
And I didn't work out before 38. I hadn't thrown a working punch in 19 years. I was killing KO out there. I truly was asking. And I told him when we went in the back, I said, man, I can't believe you didn't throw a receipt. And he just laughed because his job was to take care of me.
And I guess it was best that KO never considered giving him a receipt, as some of the ones given in the past have been pretty brutal in WWE. Finally, in more recent years, Stone Cold has conducted a lot of great interviews on the Broken Skull session. However, one with Dean Ambrose, now known as John Moxley, is memorable for all the wrong reasons. It's an interview that he regrets to this very day, and during it, it became very awkward when Steve told Dean that he's rested on his laurels and has become way too comfortable within WWE.
Amp up and amplify everything you've got, because I think the WWE Universe deserves to see that. And you've shown a lot of that, but I would dare say you've rested on your laurels, you're a little bit comfortable, and you need to find the edge again. I'm challenging you to push the envelope and go for it.
And you can see Dean getting upset and uncomfortable in the interview.
To that you say what? Have you been in the safe zone? Am I missing something?
Rested on my laurels. I am offended by that. I don't care. Screw it.
And Steve has made it clear that the whole thing was a gigantic mess. So while speaking to Tony Khan on the Steve Austin show, he revealed how he felt about the whole interview.
people have been asking this for a long ass time. I can't remember how long it's been since this happened, but now the word's out on the street and I get a chance to address it. And you happen to be sitting in front of me, so I'll tell it in front of you. Did a Stone Cold podcast a couple years ago with Dean Ambrose, and for whatever reason, we got off on the wrong track, and it was a rough podcast. And I have been carrying 1,000 pounds on my back ever since that happened. I felt so bad about that interview, and I was leading the interview. So I take the fault of it because I'm there to get people over and make them come off like $1,000,000. Yeah. And we just come off on the wrong street and just kept taking left turns and never got back on track. Well, we never were on track. Well, he had his reasons and I had mine.
And while Steve made up with Dean sometime later, it's no secret that it's been chewing at him for years. But on a more lighter note, did you guys ever wonder why Stone Cold was so good at catching bears in the ring back in the day? Heck, did you guys ever wonder who was the guy throwing the can so precisely at him? While talking to Pat McAfee on his podcast, Austin revealed that due to him previously playing football, he had a decent catch on him. But more importantly, credit has to go to Mark Eaton, as he was the one ringside throwing them towards Austin no matter where he was in the ring and creating some pretty iconic moments within WWE.
But god dang, I could catch a football and I could damn sure catch a beer. And shit, man, if someone's going to throw you beers and that's part of your job, make damn sure you catch them. But there wasn't too many I dropped. And I'll give a shout out to the bell ringer, the timekeeper, Mark Eaton. He was the guy who would launch those beers, and sometimes, I'd be in the ring and he'd be launching them, and I'd be over in different parts of the ring. And he had one of the best arms ever. And sometimes I'd be way across the ring, damn near up on the ramp. And I'd give him the signal, and he'd kind of shake me off like, I don't know if I should throw it. I said, no, motherfucker, if I signal it, you throw it. And so he would launch him, and goddamn, if I didn't catch it, that thing was careen off my hand and hit somebody in the head. So, the stakes were high. I used to tell people towards the end, man, shit, I was getting paid to drink for a living and wrestling on the side.
Another story we can't miss is Stone Cold's most hilarious segment on SmackDown, which took place shortly after Booker T screwed him for the Undisputed Championship at Vengeance 2001. The Rattlesnake stalked the former WCW champion relentlessly and finally got his hands on him at the Green Frog Grocery for an iconic segment.
You want some ketchup in that ass whooping? What's that? You want a bird?
Austin and Booker T did so much damage to the store and all the food and drinks during this segment, with Stone Cold ultimately beating Booker T senseless. Both Hall of Famers have gone on record saying how much they love filming the grocery store brawl, and have also mentioned that the damages totaled $15,000, which Vince had to cover. And while speaking to each other on Booker T's podcast, they talked about how iconic the whole segment was, considering it was one take to do everything and there was no planning involved.
Yeah, man, you and I, the epic fight in the Green Frog grocery store in Bakersfield, California. Did you ever in a million years think that would be an iconic moment?
You know what? When we did it that night, and it was, you know how it went? I mean, it was just bare bones. Hey, let's try this, boom, boom. I mean, it really wasn't nothing said. We did it.
Action.
And we had a blast, and it was one take, and that was it. And we destroyed that store. I never thought then that it would turn into the moment that the event that it turned out to be.
You know what I talk to young people about is, I never thought about it either. I never anticipated it. But Stone Cold Steve Austin was a badass. Booker T was a badass. At that time, it was, for me, it was character building. And I was learning in the WWE, and then I find myself in that situation. But my thing was always to go out and make it the best I possibly could make it. And you was the same way. And I think that's what made that thing so special.
If you enjoyed the video today, make sure to check out the Undertaker one we did previously, and make sure to subscribe for more.